For decades, whenever you heard the word Iran in the news, the next words were almost always nuclear bomb, right? The entire global conversation was about enriched uranium, centrifuges, and breakout times. But what if we've all been looking at the wrong threat? What if Iran's most powerful weapon isn't a missile in a silo, but something hiding in plain sight?
So yeah, the threat we were all told to worry about was enriched uranium, the stuff you need to build a bomb. But the real weapon, the actual game-changing deterrent, turned out to be something much, much simpler. It's geography. A tiny strip of water, just 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz.
Okay, so why is this one little waterway so incredibly important? Well, because it's not just a strait. You have to think of it as the main artery for the world's energy supply. And if you clog that artery, the entire global economy is at risk of a massive heart attack. To really wrap your head around the scale here, just look at the numbers. Before the crisis, a mind-boggling 21 million barrels of oil were squeezing through that strait. And that's not per week or per month. That's every single day. A constant flow of energy that powers pretty much everything. So what does that number mean in the grand scheme of things? Well, it means that a full quarter, 25% of all the oil and gas that's shipped by sea anywhere on the planet has to pass through this one tiny choke point. One single point on the map is responsible for a quarter of the world's seaborne energy. It's wild. And where's all this energy going? The vast majority of it is heading east. We're talking a whopping 76% of it being bought up by the big players in Asia: India, China, Japan, and South Korea. These are the engines of the global economy, and they're completely, utterly dependent on this one narrow passage staying open for business. And, that kind of extreme dependency, well, that creates a huge vulnerability. So how exactly do you detonate a geographical nuke? How do you turn a simple waterway into a weapon? The answer, it turns out, is surprisingly low-tech. It's basically a 4-step playbook, and it's devastatingly effective. First, you just issue a warning to all the tankers out there. Then, to show you mean business, you fire on one ship. Just one. That's all it takes. Suddenly, the risk is very, very real. The global insurance market freaks out, and premiums go through the roof. And just like that, it becomes way too expensive and way too dangerous for anyone to sail through. The artery is clogged. Game over. And here's the really critical part to understand. This isn't just about the price of gas at the pump. About 20% of the world's entire gas supply goes through that strait. A full third of global fertilizer shipments, the stuff we need to grow food, also passes through. On top of all that, you have crucial rare minerals needed for manufacturing. The ripple effects are just massive. So, what happens when you pull the plug on all of that? Well, the fallout isn't some abstract economic theory that you read about in a textbook. It is an immediate, powerful global shockwave. The financial services firm Morningstar actually ran the numbers on this, and they are just staggering. Their high-end estimate for the damage to the global economy, try $2.2 trillion. Trillion with a T. That is a body blow to the entire world economy. And the U.S. Federal Reserve dug into it too. They figured that closing the strait for just one quarter, only 3 months, would slash global GDP growth by almost 3%. For a country like India, which needs that oil so badly, it could wipe a full percentage point off its own GDP. These aren't just stats on a page, that's real economic pain for millions and millions of people. And this quote, right here, it just perfectly captures the new reality of this situation. When the U.S. made threats and demanded the strait be reopened, Iran, well, they just laughed it off. The strait stayed closed, and the world's biggest superpower discovered it had almost no good moves left to make. It was a stunning demonstration of how powerful this geographical weapon really is. So this whole event, it wasn't just some temporary blip on the radar. No, it fundamentally redrew the entire strategic map. We are all playing by a new set of rules now. And right at the heart of this new reality is a major legal standoff. On one side, you have the United Nations and most of the world saying, hey, international law says these critical waterways have to stay open for everybody. But on the other side, you have Iran, which says, nope, these are our waters, our sovereign territory. And they're quick to point out that they never even signed the UN treaty that governs this stuff. And that right there is the core dispute that's going to define this issue for years to come. So when you put all these pieces together, what's the big takeaway here? It's pretty clear. For decades, everyone was obsessed with stopping Iran from getting a nuke. But what this crisis proved to Tehran and to the rest of the world is that they already had something just as powerful. They have a nuclear-level deterrent that you don't build in a secret lab. It's just right there on the map. And that, of course, leaves us with a pretty sobering final thought. If a simple piece of geography like the Strait of Hormuz can be turned into a weapon this powerful, it forces you to look at the entire world map in a new light. And it makes you wonder, what's the next Hormuz? Where's the world's next strategic choke point just waiting to be weaponized?